Gemma Hart stood outside the elegant Riverside Bistro on Fifth Avenue, her heart pounding with righteous anger. Through the large glass windows, she could see him clearly. The man wore a burgundy jacket with gold buttons, his dark hair swept back perfectly. Beside him sat an older woman with silver hair styled in an elaborate updo, wearing pearls that probably cost more than Gemma's entire wardrobe. "That lying snake," Gemma muttered under her breath. Her best friend Rachel had shown her a photo just yesterday. Rachel's boyfriend, Trevor, had promised to take her to this exact restaurant for their anniversary. Instead, here he was with another woman, flaunting his betrayal in broad daylight. Gemma pushed through the restaurant doors with determination. The hostess tried to intercept her, but Gemma moved past her like a woman on a mission. Her boots clicked against the polished marble floor as she approached the table near the window. The public confrontation. Trevor Hammond. "You absolute fraud," Gemma announced loudly, stopping directly in front of their table. Several nearby diners turned to look. "You promised Rachel a romantic anniversary dinner at this very restaurant. Instead, you bring your side piece here. Have you no shame?" The man looked up, confusion written across his handsome features. His eyes were hazel, not brown like Trevor's. His jaw was more angular, his nose straighter. "The burgundy jacket should have been a clue," Gemma continued, her voice rising. "You dress like a game show host having a midlife crisis. And you, ma'am, with all respect to your obvious elegance and impeccable taste in jewelry, don't you think this situation is wildly inappropriate? My friend Rachel is 26 years old, genuine, kind, and definitely not collecting Social Security checks." The older woman's eyes widened before a smile tugged at her lips. The man simply stared, his mouth slightly open. "Excuse me, but who are you?" the man finally asked, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Don't play innocent, Trevor. I'm Gemma Hart, Rachel's best friend since college. The one who helped you pick out her birthday present last year. The one who covered for you when you claimed to be working late." The woman set down her teacup with a delicate clink. "My dear girl, this is quite entertaining, but I must inform you that you have made a rather spectacular error. This is my son, Vincent Stone. We do not know anyone named Rachel or Trevor." A terrible realization. Gemma felt the color drain from her face. She looked at the man again, really looked this time. The eyes were wrong. The smile was different. The way he held himself spoke of old money and business empires, not Trevor's eager-to-please demeanor. "Oh, no," she whispered, slowly turning her head. 3 tables away, she spotted the real Trevor, also wearing a burgundy jacket, sitting with a blonde woman. When their eyes met, Trevor quickly grabbed his companion's hand and they hurried toward the exit. "This is monumentally embarrassing," Gemma said, her voice barely audible now. "I just publicly humiliated the wrong person." "Monumentally is one word for it," Vincent replied, though his tone held more amusement than anger. "Though I must say that game show host comment was particularly creative." An unexpected proposal. Before Gemma could apologize or flee in shame, the older woman stood up. Charlotte Stone was tall, elegant, and radiated the kind of power that came from decades of commanding respect. "What is your full name, dear?" Charlotte asked, her accent refined and distinctly upper class. "Gemma Hart," she replied, still reeling from her mistake. Charlotte took Gemma's hand firmly. "Miss Hart, you have just become the most interesting person I have met in years. You are bold, passionate, and refreshingly honest. My son surrounds himself with corporate robots and social climbers who tell him only what he wants to hear. You, however, just called him a game show host having a midlife crisis in front of half of Manhattan's elite." "I apologize profusely," Gemma stammered. "I was trying to defend my friend and I got the wrong person, and I should probably leave before this gets any worse." "Leave?" "Absolutely not." Charlotte's eyes sparkled with determination. "Tell me, are you currently in a relationship?" "What?" "No, but I don't see what that has to do with anything." "Perfect. Vincent, what about you?" "Mother, please don't," Vincent said, recognizing the look on his mother's face. Too late. "Miss Hart, my son needs someone like you in his life. Someone real. Someone unimpressed by wealth. Someone who speaks their mind without fear. You are going to marry him." The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Gemma blinked several times, convinced she had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard correctly. My son is 34 years old and has yet to find a suitable partner. Every woman he dates is either after his money or trying to climb the social ladder. You just insulted him publicly without knowing who he was. That is genuine character." The arrangement Vincent rubbed his temples. "Mother, you cannot arrange a marriage in a public restaurant. Watch me. Miss Hart, my son is the CEO of Stone Industries. We own this restaurant, along with 43 others across the country, plus technology companies, real estate holdings, and various other enterprises. If you marry my son, you will want for nothing." "This is insane," Gemma protested. "You cannot be serious." "I am completely serious. Vincent, if you do not marry this young woman, I will transfer control of the company to your cousin Jeffrey, who will undoubtedly run it into the ground within 5 years. Miss Hart, if you refuse, I will sue you for slander, defamation, and emotional distress for that game show host comment. I have 17 witnesses." "You cannot sue someone for that," Gemma argued. "Perhaps not successfully, but I can certainly make your life legally complicated for the next several years. My lawyers are very expensive and very persistent." Gemma looked at Vincent, who seemed resigned to his fate. She thought about her tiny apartment in Brooklyn, her 3 roommates, her job at the bookstore that barely covered rent, and her student loans that would outlive her. "If I agree to this madness, what exactly would be expected of me?" Charlotte smiled triumphantly. "Live with my son for 6 months. Attend social functions as his wife. Give this arrangement a genuine chance. After 6 months, if you both wish to divorce, I will provide you with a generous settlement and we part as friends." A life-changing decision. Gemma looked around the restaurant. Wealthy people watched with fascination, probably assuming this was some kind of performance art. Through the window, she could see the street where she caught 2 buses every day to get to work. 6 months, she repeated. 6 months, Charlotte confirmed. Vincent finally spoke. "If we are doing this, we should at least have a proper conversation first. Miss Hart, would you join me for coffee tomorrow? Somewhere less public where we can discuss the actual details of this arrangement like reasonable adults?" His voice was kind, his eyes tired but not unkind. Gemma realized he was as much a victim of his mother's schemes as she was. "Coffee sounds reasonable," Gemma agreed. "But I have conditions." "Many conditions?" "As do I," Vincent replied. "Tomorrow at 10. I will send a car to pick you up. I can take the subway. The car will be more comfortable for our discussion." "Where should I send it?" Gemma gave him her address, still not quite believing what was happening. Charlotte clapped her hands together with satisfaction. "Excellent. Welcome to the family, dear. Vincent, do not mess this up." As Gemma walked out of the restaurant in a daze, she heard Charlotte say to her son, "That girl has spirit. She will be good for you." Vincent's response was too quiet to hear, but Gemma suspected it involved words his mother would not approve of. She pulled out her phone to call Rachel, knowing her friend would never believe what had just happened. Neither would Gemma, except it was all too real. Tomorrow she would meet Vincent Stone for coffee. In 6 months she might be divorced from him. But tonight, she was simply Gemma Hart, the girl who yelled at the wrong millionaire and somehow ended up engaged to him. Gemma woke up the next morning convinced the entire restaurant incident had been a stress-induced fever dream. Then she saw the text message on her phone from an unknown number. "Good morning, Miss Hart. This is Vincent Stone. The car will arrive at your address at 9:30. We have much to discuss. Please do not bring your friend who might mistake me for someone else again." Despite everything, Gemma smiled at his attempt at humor. She rolled out of bed and nearly tripped over her roommate Jessica, who was sleeping on an air mattress because their apartment only had 2 bedrooms split between 4 people. "Where are you going so early?" Jessica mumbled, half asleep. "To have coffee with a millionaire who might become my husband because his mother threatened to sue me." Jessica grunted and rolled over, clearly thinking Gemma was joking. If only she knew. The coffee shop meeting. The car that arrived was not the limousine Gemma had feared. Instead, a simple black sedan pulled up, driven by a friendly man named Thomas, who made pleasant conversation about the weather during the ride to a small coffee shop in Greenwich Village. Vincent was already there, sitting at a corner table wearing jeans and a simple gray sweater. Without the burgundy jacket, he looked younger, more approachable. He stood when she entered. "Thank you for coming," he said, pulling out her chair. "I took the liberty of ordering you a cappuccino. If you prefer something else, please say so. Cappuccino is perfect." Gemma sat down, studying him carefully. "So, do we actually go through with this insanity, or was yesterday your mother having some kind of episode?" Vincent laughed, a genuine sound that made him seem far less intimidating. "I wish I could say it was an episode. Unfortunately, my mother is perfectly serious. She has already contacted her lawyers to draw up a marriage contract. This is genuinely happening. It appears so. Unless you run away right now, which I would completely understand." Learning the truth, Gemma wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup. "Tell me about yourself. The real version, not whatever your corporate biography says." Vincent leaned back, surprised by her directness. "Fair enough. I am 34 years old. I became CEO of Stone Industries when I was 28 after my father passed away. The company employs over 15,000 people across various sectors. I work approximately 80 hours per week. I have no siblings. My mother is my only family, which is why I tolerate her interference in my personal life." "That sounds lonely," Gemma said quietly. "It is." Vincent's honesty caught them both off guard. "What about you, Miss Hart?" "Call me Gemma, please. I am 27 years old. I manage a bookstore in Brooklyn. I share a cramped apartment with 3 other women. My parents passed away in a car accident when I was 19. Rachel, the friend I was defending yesterday, is the closest thing I have to family. I have $43,000 in student loans from my literature degree that qualifies me to alphabetize books for minimum wage." Vincent winced. "I apologize. I did not mean to make light of your situation." "You didn't. I am just being honest. If we are actually doing this marriage thing, we should probably be honest with each other." The contract. Vincent pulled out a folder from his bag. "My mother had this prepared last night. I have not signed it yet, because I wanted you to review it first and make any changes you feel necessary." Gemma opened the folder and began reading. The contract was surprisingly fair. She would receive a monthly allowance, full health insurance, and access to a joint bank account. After 6 months, if they divorced, she would receive a settlement of $500,000 plus full payment of all her student loans. "This seems too generous," Gemma said. "My mother feels guilty for forcing this situation. She wants to ensure you are compensated for the disruption to your life. What about you? What do you want from this arrangement?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, staring into his coffee. "Honestly, I want my mother to stop interfering. Every woman I meet either knows who I am and wants my money, or does not know who I am and runs away when they find out. Yesterday you insulted me without knowing my bank account balance. That was refreshing. So I insulted my way into a marriage proposal. That is definitely a story for the grandchildren we will never have." Vincent smiled again. "You have an unusual sense of humor, Gemma Hart. It helps me process traumatic situations, like agreeing to marry a stranger." Moving. 3 days later, Gemma found herself standing in the lobby of a luxury apartment building in Tribeca with 2 suitcases containing everything she owned. Vincent's home was a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River. "The guest bedroom is down that hallway," Vincent said, carrying her suitcases. "It has its own bathroom and walk-in closet. You can decorate it however you like." "Thank you." Gemma wandered through the space, touching expensive furniture carefully as if it might break. "Vincent, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you actually agree to this?" "You could have said no to your mother." Vincent set down the suitcases and turned to face her. "Because she was right about one thing. I am lonely. I have not had a genuine conversation with anyone outside of business meetings in years. Yesterday, despite the embarrassment, was the most human interaction I have experienced in months. Perhaps 6 months with someone real, even if it is temporary, will remind me what normal life feels like." Gemma felt something shift in her chest. Sympathy, perhaps, or recognition. They were both lonely people playing roles they never auditioned for. The workplace revelation. 1 week into their arrangement, Gemma returned to work at the bookstore. Her boss, Mr. Peterson, greeted her with unusual enthusiasm. "Gemma, wonderful news. We have been purchased by a larger company. They are investing in renovations, better inventory, and substantial pay raises for all staff. That is amazing. Which company? Stone Industries. Apparently, they are diversifying into retail. The representative said we impressed them with our community engagement and customer loyalty. Gemma's stomach dropped. She found Vincent that evening in his home office, working on his laptop. "Did you buy the bookstore where I work?" she asked without preamble. Vincent looked up, guilt flickering across his face. "My mother mentioned you worked at a struggling independent bookstore. I looked into it. The business model was sound, but the owner lacked capital for necessary improvements. It was a good investment opportunity. You cannot just buy my workplace. I did not do it for you specifically. I did it because it was smart business. The fact that you work there is coincidental." Vincent. "Fine. Perhaps it was partly because I wanted you to have a better work environment." "Is that so terrible?" Gemma wanted to be angry, but his expression was so earnest she found herself softening. "Just tell me next time before you make grand gestures involving my life." Agreed. "Gemma, there is something else you should know." Charlotte's secret gift, Vincent, handed her a document. "My mother had her lawyers transfer 20% of Stone Industries shares into your name. She did it quietly, hoping I would not notice. I discovered it today when reviewing quarterly reports." Gemma stared at the paper, the numbers swimming before her eyes. 20% of your company. How much is that worth?" "Approximately $200 million. The room tilted slightly. Gemma sat down hard on the nearest chair. "Your mother gave me $200 million. She gave you power. Those shares come with voting rights on the board of directors. You are now one of the largest shareholders in the company. But I know nothing about running a technology company. You do not need to. The shares are yours regardless of what happens between us. My mother put them in an irrevocable trust. Even if we divorce tomorrow, you keep them. A new enemy." The next morning, Gemma received a call from an unknown number. A woman's voice, cold and sharp, spoke without introduction. "Miss Hart, my name is Monica Pierce. I am Vincent Stone's senior vice president and have been with the company for 8 years. I am calling to inform you that your sudden appearance and acquisition of company shares has not gone unnoticed. I suggest you stay out of company business. You are temporary. I am permanent." The line went dead before Gemma could respond. She stared at her phone, a chill running down her spine. That evening, she mentioned the call to Vincent over dinner, their first shared meal in the apartment. "Monica Pierce," Vincent said grimly. "She has been angling for promotion to CFO for 2 years. She likely sees your shares as a threat to her influence. Should I be worried? Monica is ambitious and calculating, but she is not dangerous, just territorial. However, I should warn you that she will likely make things difficult if you involve yourself with the company. Good thing I have no intention of involving myself then." Vincent's expression suggested he doubted that would remain. True, the first cracks over the following weeks. Gemma and Vincent fell into an unexpected rhythm. They had breakfast together most mornings. He taught her about the stock market. She introduced him to classic literature he had never read despite his expensive education. They laughed more than either expected. One night, while watching a movie together on the couch, maintaining a careful 2 feet of distance, Vincent spoke quietly. "Gemma, can I confess something?" "Of course. This arrangement feels less temporary every day. That terrifies me." Gemma's heart hammered. "It terrifies me too." They sat in silence, the movie playing unwatched, both realizing that somewhere between the coffee shop meeting and tonight, something had shifted. The 6-month arrangement was supposed to be simple, practical, and emotionally detached. Instead, feelings were developing that neither of them had planned for. Feelings that made everything infinitely more complicated. Charlotte's wisdom. The next day, Charlotte invited Gemma for lunch at her elegant townhouse. The older woman served tea in delicate china cups and studied Gemma with knowing eyes. "You are falling for him," Charlotte said simply. "I do not know what you mean." "My dear girl, I have known Vincent his entire life. I see how he looks at you when he thinks no one is watching. And you light up when he enters a room. This was my plan all along. You manipulated us. I gave you both an opportunity. What you do with it is entirely your choice." Vincent has been alone too long, drowning in responsibility and expectation. You have been struggling, working 3 jobs just to survive while people overlook your intelligence and potential. You needed each other. I simply created the circumstances for you to discover that. Gemma wanted to be angry at Charlotte's meddling, but found she could not summon the emotion. Because deep down she suspected Charlotte was right. "What happens when the 6 months end?" Gemma asked quietly. "That, my dear, depends entirely on what you both want. But I suspect by then you will have figured it out." As Gemma left the townhouse, her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. "Dinner tonight? I found a small Italian place that reminds me of the bookstore. Cozy, unpretentious, perfect." Gemma smiled and typed her response. "Perfect. It is a date." She paused before hitting send, then deleted the last 3 words and replaced them with "see you at 7." But in her heart, she knew the truth. It was a date. And that changed everything. 2 months into their arrangement, Gemma received an urgent call from Vincent while she was organizing new arrivals at the bookstore. "I need you to come to Stone Industries headquarters immediately," he said, his voice tight with tension. "What happened? Are you all right?" "Monica Pierce called an emergency board meeting. She is attempting a vote of no confidence against me. As a major shareholder, you have the right to attend and vote. I would not ask, but I need your support." Gemma's hands shook as she hung up. She told Mr. Peterson she had a family emergency and caught a taxi to the gleaming skyscraper in Midtown that housed Stone Industries. The building was intimidating, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. Security escorted her to the 42nd floor where the boardroom occupied a space larger than her entire apartment. 12 people sat around a massive oak table, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Vincent sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of professional calm. Beside him sat Charlotte, dressed in a sharp navy suit, her expression dangerous. Monica Pierce stood near a presentation screen, looking confident in a crimson dress that probably cost more than Gemma earned in 6 months. "Ah, Miss Hart," Monica said with false sweetness. "How kind of you to join us. I was just explaining to the board how Vincent's recent marriage to a bookstore clerk represents a serious lapse in judgment that calls into question his ability to lead this company." Standing her ground, Gemma felt every eye in the room turn to her. She was wearing jeans and a simple blouse because she had been unpacking boxes all morning. Next to these corporate warriors in their designer suits, she looked absurdly out of place. "Mrs. Stone, actually," Gemma corrected quietly, taking the empty seat beside Charlotte. "And I believe you called this meeting to discuss a vote of no confidence, not to critique personal life choices." Monica's smile sharpened. "Of course. Let me present the facts. In the past quarter, Vincent has made several questionable acquisitions. A struggling bookstore chain, a small publishing house, a literary magazine with a circulation of barely 10,000. These investments show emotional decision-making rather than sound business strategy." She clicked through a presentation highlighting the acquisitions and their costs. The numbers look damaging when presented without context. "Furthermore," Monica continued, "Vincent's sudden marriage to someone with no business experience, followed by the transfer of substantial company shares to her, suggests he is not thinking clearly. I propose we vote to remove him as CEO and install someone with a more focused vision." "Someone like you," Charlotte said coolly. "I have given 8 years to this company. I have earned consideration." The real story. Gemma looked at Vincent, who sat rigid in his chair. She could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of carrying an entire company on his shoulders while people like Monica circled like sharks. Something inside her snapped. Not anger exactly, but clarity. Charlotte had given her power for a reason. It was time to use it. "May I speak?" Gemma asked, standing up. Monica gestured magnanimously. "By all means." Gemma walked to the presentation screen, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "I am not a businesswoman. I manage a bookstore and I love literature. So when Vincent started making these acquisitions, I asked him why. Do you know what he told me?" The room was silent. "He said that Stone Industries had become too focused on quarterly profits and short-term gains. He said his father built this company on the principle of investing in things that mattered, even if they took time to show returns. The bookstore chain was failing not because the business model was bad, but because it needed capital to modernize. Vincent invested $3 million. In 2 months, revenue is already up 30% because people still want physical books. They just need beautiful spaces to buy them. Gemma pulled up her phone and connected it to the presentation system. She had been learning from Vincent, watching how he prepared for meetings. The publishing house specializes in debut authors from underrepresented communities. Last month, one of their books hit the bestseller list. The author is a 40-year-old immigrant woman who was rejected by every major publisher. That book has now sold 200,000 copies and generated $5 million in revenue. The movie rights just sold for 8 figures. Turning the tables, she clicked to the next slide. Numbers she had asked Vincent's assistant to compile that morning during her taxi ride. The literary magazine has a small circulation, but it reaches an incredibly influential demographic. Educators, intellectuals, policymakers. Vincent's investment allowed them to expand their digital presence. Their subscriber base has grown by 300%. More importantly, they ran a feature article about Stone Industries' commitment to cultural investment. That article was read by the mayor, who then selected Stone Industries for a $200 million contract to modernize the city's digital infrastructure. The board members shifted in their seats. Monica's confident expression faltered. Vincent's acquisitions were not emotional decisions. Gemma continued. They were strategic investments in brand reputation and market diversification. He saw opportunities where others saw risk. That is not poor leadership. That is vision. Charlotte was smiling now, a proud gleam in her eyes. As for his personal life, Gemma said, looking directly at Monica, Vincent married me because his mother is terrifying and persuasive. But he gave me these shares because he trusts me to vote in the company's best interest, not my own. He could have kept all the power for himself. Instead, he chose to distribute it because he believes good leadership means building trust, not hoarding control. The vote Gemma returned to her seat, her legs shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Vincent was staring at her with an expression she could not quite read. "Well," said Robert Chen, the oldest board member. That was quite enlightening. "Monica, do you have a response?" Monica had recovered her composure, but barely. Miss Hart presents an optimistic interpretation. However, the fact remains that these investments were risky and unconventional. "All good investments are risky," said another board member, Patricia Williams. "If we only invested in sure things, we would never grow. I have watched Vincent lead this company for 6 years. He has tripled our value and maintained our reputation. 1/4 of experimental acquisitions does not erase that track record." "I agree," said Robert. "Monica, I appreciate your diligence, but I do not believe a vote of no confidence is warranted. Vincent has my full support." One by one, the board members voiced their positions. When the final count was taken, Vincent retained his position as CEO with 11 votes in his favor. Only Monica voted against him. "This meeting is adjourned," Charlotte announced with satisfaction. "Monica, please see me in my office." A private moment after everyone left, Gemma and Vincent stood alone in the boardroom. The city sprawled below them through the massive windows, thousands of lives playing out in the buildings and streets. "You did not have to do that," Vincent said quietly. "Yes, I did. Monica was wrong about you. Gemma, that speech you gave, those insights about my acquisitions, I never explained all of that to you." "No, but I pay attention. I watch you work at night when you think I am reading. I listen when you talk about the company during breakfast. I asked your assistant questions because I wanted to understand what you do all day. Vincent, you are brilliant at this. You care about people and profits equally. That is rare." Vincent took a step closer. "Why do you care so much about understanding my work?" "Because," Gemma said, her voice barely above a whisper, "somewhere between coffee meetings and movie nights, I stopped thinking of this as a temporary arrangement. I started thinking of you as someone I want to know completely." The truth comes. Out Vincent's careful professional mask cracked. "I was going to wait until the 6 months ended. I told myself I would be patient and proper and give you space to decide without pressure. But Gemma, I have been falling for you since the day you called me a game show host having a midlife crisis." Gemma laughed, tears suddenly blurring her vision. "That is possibly the least romantic thing anyone has ever said." "I know. I am terrible at this. I have spent 15 years learning business strategy and forgot how to be human. Then you walked into my life, insulted me publicly, moved into my home. and reminded me what it feels like to actually live instead of just exist. Vincent, I love you. Gemma Hart, not because my mother arranged this, not because you own 20% of my company. I love you because you make me laugh, because you read poetry aloud while cooking breakfast, because you argue with me about movie plots, because you stood up for me today when you did not have to. Gemma closed the distance between them. I love you too. I have been terrified to admit it because this whole situation seemed too strange to be real. But it is real. You are real. This feeling is real. Vincent cupped her face in his hands. May I kiss you? We have been married for 2 months, and I have not even kissed you. That seems backwards. Everything about us is backwards. We might as well continue the tradition. Their first kiss, happened 42 floors above Manhattan, in a boardroom that smelled of coffee and expensive cologne, with late afternoon sun streaming through the windows. It was gentle and tentative at first, 2 people learning each other. Then it deepened into something more certain, more real. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. So, Vincent said, do we still get divorced in 4 months? Absolutely not. I am keeping you. Thank goodness. My mother would have killed me if I let you get away. They laughed, foreheads touching. The weight of pretense finally lifted. Charlotte's satisfaction that evening. Charlotte hosted a small dinner party at her townhouse. Just the 3 of them, plus Rachel, who Gemma had insisted on inviting. I told you they would figure it out, Charlotte said to Rachel over wine. You did, Rachel agreed, though your methods were unconventional. Conventional methods produce conventional results. My son needed someone extraordinary. Gemma needed someone who would see her value. Sometimes we need a push to find what we were looking for all along. Vincent raised his glass. To Charlotte Stone, the most manipulative and loving mother in New York. I will accept that toast, Charlotte said with dignity. And to Gemma, who yelled at the wrong millionaire and became the right daughter-in-law. 6 months later, the 6-month mark came and went without discussion. Gemma had moved from the guest bedroom into Vincent's room 3 months earlier. The apartment felt like home now, filled with her books and his scattered work papers. A perfect chaos of 2 lives blending together. Monica Pierce had resigned from Stone Industries and started her own consulting firm. Charlotte sent her a generous severance package with a note that said simply, better luck next time. The bookstore where Gemma worked had expanded to 3 locations. She now served as creative director for Stone Industries' Cultural Investments Division, a position Vincent created specifically for her talents. One evening, while they were cooking dinner together, Vincent suddenly said, we should get married. Gemma looked at him, confused. We are married. I mean properly. With a ceremony and guests and you in a beautiful dress. Our wedding was 15 minutes in a government office. You deserve better. Vincent Stone, are you proposing to your own wife? I am. Gemma Hart Stone, will you marry me again properly this time with everyone we love watching? Gemma pretended to consider. Will your mother wear a reasonable hat or one of those elaborate affairs that blocks everyone's view? I cannot make promises about my mother's hat choices. Then yes, I will marry you again. The real wedding. 3 months later, they married in a small ceremony in Central Park. Rachel served as maid of honor. Charlotte wore a spectacular hat and cried through the entire ceremony. Mr. Peterson brought the entire bookstore staff. The board of directors attended, even Monica Pierce, who sent a card that read, Congratulations, you won fair and square. When the officiant asked if Vincent took Gemma as his lawfully wedded wife, he said, I already did, but I am happy to do it again. Forever this time. When Gemma said her vows, she included the phrase, I promise to never again yell at you in a crowded restaurant unless you genuinely deserve it. The guests laughed. Vincent kissed her while everyone cheered. The happy ending. 2 years later, Gemma sat in Charlotte's garden watching Vincent play with their 6-month-old daughter, Sophie. The baby had inherited Vincent's hazel eyes and Gemma's wild curls. You orchestrated all of this, Gemma said to Charlotte, who sat beside her drinking tea. I simply created an opportunity. You and Vincent did the rest. Thank you. For being manipulative and brilliant and seeing something I could not see? Charlotte squeezed her hand. My dear girl, I simply saw two lonely people who needed each other. Love did the rest. Vincent walked over, Sophie giggling in his arms. He kissed Gemma's forehead and sat beside her. What are you two conspiring about? He asked. Just discussing how your mother is the reason for all of our happiness, Gemma replied. I am aware. I remind myself daily that her interference, while infuriating at the time, gave me everything I never knew I needed. Sophie grabbed Vincent's nose, and they all laughed. In the distance, the city hummed with life. Somewhere in Manhattan, someone was probably yelling at the wrong person in a restaurant. Perhaps another story was beginning, born from chaos and chance. But for Gemma and Vincent, their story had found its perfect ending. A love built on mistaken identity, forced proximity, and the meddling of a determined mother-in-law who knew that sometimes the best matches are the ones we never see coming. They had started as strangers brought together by absurdity. They had become partners through choice, and now they were family, bound by love that grew from the most unlikely of beginnings. It was messy and unconventional and absolutely perfect. Just like them. The end.